Selamat Hari Jumaat. Happy Friday. This is Cairo running for Ice Chat. Innovation, change, and entrepreneurship. Helping people get back on their feet is good economics. See you in 4 minutes. Hello, hi, this is Cairo, live from Ice Chat, Innovation, Change, and Entrepreneurship. You see my face, it's a bit red, and there's a blister on my head after the PD getaway short one. So I'm today with Safura Atan on a topic called design thinking, the intersection of design thinking and entrepreneurialism. Yeah, I managed to say it right. So today's topic is very interesting because design thinking as an innovation tool is growing up, and I'm glad that Sapura is happy to bring this thing forward and to share her thoughts as she's also a real growth business advisor and also a coach. So hopefully with this new insight that you're going to provide to all of us will give you a little bit, a thing or two on your Friday for you to take back and maybe put some reflection on the weekend, and also maybe apply it to your own business. Who knows? So I'd like to call in Safura Atan. Hi, Safura.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so
Hello.
much for being on the show. Welcome. How
Thank
are you?
you. Alhamdulillah. It's a
Good.
pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Right. You're welcome. You're in your own house, so there's no here. It's
Yes,
only
so
there.
excuse the background.
Don't worry. It's blurred. Right. Welcome to the show, Ice Chat, Innovation, Change, and Entrepreneurship. And as I always mention, the tagline, helping people get back on their feet is good economics. Yeah, I think that's something that we want to work on. And today we have this topic called design thinking and entrepreneurialism. Wow, it's a double imperialism, right? As I mentioned just now. Right. So, Safura, tell us a little bit about yourself before we begin to our audience.
Okay. Hello. Assalamualaikum. I'm
Salam.
Safura. I have been in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, I think, for more than 20 years. It shows my age. And I officially actually started work in Perbadanan Usahawan Nasional Berhad, monitoring entrepreneurs. But even before that, I was an entrepreneur in several businesses, small businesses. And I think from there itself, my interest has always been about how to become a better entrepreneur. Because I like to deep dive and find out, Partly because none of my family members are entrepreneurs. My parents were academicians, and even my siblings are all working with some GLC or with the government. So that's a bit of background about me. And
Right.
previously, I was helming SEDA, Center of Entrepreneur Development and Research. And currently, I'm doing business coaching, and I'm a Growthwheel business advisor. So just a bit, I think more than enough, right?
Yes, that's enough. Thank you so much. That's a good introduction. So now talk about design thinking, right? Can you share with us a little bit, particularly the audience right now? We have a number of audience online right now. What is design thinking?
Well, design thinking really is a non-linear iterative process. It's actually, to me personally, to put it in a layman's term, it's a method of thinking like a designer. So as a designer, you are basically designing for an audience, either a product or a service. And the emphasis is the customer, human-centric, meaning when you're designing something, it is for a particular audience. So there is a process towards it. It's non-linear. First, you need to empathize. You actually need to understand who your customer, who's your user. Then you define the scope of issues or solutions that you want to have.
Wow.
You put in your ideas. You have a simple prototype and you test. So it's actually some we call it mahzab tertentu, right? They have different shapes that they use. For example, the double loop. If you talk about business design, the business design book, it talks about the double loop. So it's non-linear, meaning it's not you start here and you end there. It could be that you go back in a loop, finding and improving your solution. So
Right.
pretty much that, it's design thinking.
Right. So
and it creates innovation. It helps you to be innovative.
Right. So basically, in essence, design thinking is an innovation tool that you mentioned just now, right? It's a method, maybe in parallel or if not more, like a Blue Ocean or what else, or other tools, Kaizen.
Yeah.
I mean, just a different aspect of innovation, right?
Yes.
Good. So, and what is entrepreneurialism? Wow. Entrepreneurialism, yeah. And for entrepreneurs, right? It looks like you try to connect between the design thinking and entrepreneurs, right? Can you share with us a bit more on that?
Yeah. So, if you Google the word entrepreneurialism, they would actually give a definition of people who want to start a business. But for me personally, when I came across the word, for me it actually means the marriage between you wanting to start a business, an entrepreneur and entrepreneurship, and being entrepreneurial.
Right.
Because to me, when you talk about entrepreneurship, it is a concept in so many contexts. So a lot of people are so hung up with the context that they're in. For example, you talk about social enterprise, for example. They think they are unique. They're unique in the context that they are, but the concept is still about entrepreneurship and being entrepreneurial. So that's, to me, is a bigger picture of being entrepreneurial and entrepreneurship and the development part of it. So if you talk about entrepreneurialism, that is my definition.
Right. So in other words,
Safura, Atan.
So in other words, the entrepreneurialism is not just the entrepreneurship itself, but is the attitude towards being entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
So that's I think, in other words, for someone who actually in a company but they still can practice entrepreneurialism or entrepreneurship, right? Okay, right. So what does this means for entrepreneur? Right? Design thinking and entrepreneurialism. So what does this means for them? What would they get if they would be able to understand this intersection?
Okay, to me, I think one of the best example is what we're facing now. We're talking about being in a situation out of the blue, where we have to embrace a new normal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's been 3 months. It shouldn't be new anymore.
Yeah.
It's considered, if you talk about Moore's law, it's already old.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
okay, so having said that, it's already a good example of why an entrepreneur needs to have some form of exposure to design thinking, because when they have that exposure, for them to pivot or change their business model to something which is more sustainable in any situation is there.
Right.
When people talk about design thinking in general, it could be,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just designing a product, or I'm just designing a service. But design
Right.
thinking with entrepreneurialism is basically you're talking about how do I design my business be
Right.
sustainable in the long run,
Right.
irrespective of the situation we're facing now.
Right. Right.
So I think a lot of us are facing that situation where, how do you make money 3 months? You cannot have face to face.
Right.
Trainers have to be able to suddenly pick up technology when they were resistant before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those issues.
Right. Okay. So now that you wanted to, well, your thought just is about wanted to marry design thinking as innovation tool and as a tool for
Yes,
them to maybe look back at their own business, give a reflection
exactly,
and do something
exactly,
about it. Right. So what is
exactly.
it in this design thinking that the feature that you think would benefit such entrepreneur who wanted to get into this?
Yeah, so to me again, I like to take my sort of idol is Alex Oswald.
I like also older. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so when just to go back a few years when I was a trainer in PUNB, teaching
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs how to do financial management or financial planning for their
Mm-hmm.
businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and 60% of my participants at one point of time would sleep in the class
Mm-hmm. Right.
because they did not see the big picture of how does this financial management matters to their business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I as a trainer at that point of time said, I'm lacking
Mm-hmm.
as an entrepreneur development officer in trying to facilitate entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking for methodology to facilitate entrepreneurs, because I realized even at that point of time, which is like 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
that we cannot train
Uh-huh.
entrepreneurs.
Uh-huh.
We cannot just send them for classes and
Mm.
expect them to be able to be innovative and entrepreneurial,
All right. Okay.
because they require certain tools, thinking tools,
Mm-hmm.
that at that point of time when I was a trainer, it wasn't available to me.
All right.
So when I came across to Alex's book, which is in the 2000
Mm.
plus,
Mm.
it is sort of like was the light bulb, because it
Mm.
was able to actually share how design thinking. So this is where the crossroad actually happens. But
Right.
design thinking and a canvas, a tool that actually
Mm-hmm.
help us be able to go through the process and be
Mm-hmm.
innovative with the big picture of being sustainable and profitable.
All right.
So yeah, so that's where it sort of began for me. And from there
Right.
itself, I really went to Genovasi, took
Mm-hmm.
the boot camp. I went to Babson to do
Right.
the symposium of entrepreneur educator, and I realized
Right.
over there in the
Mm.
States they're already doing this.
Right.
They're
So
already,
okay.
yeah,
I mean, you had experience in previous role in SME Bank in
yeah,
Seda, where you work a lot with entrepreneurs.
yeah,
Um, my work on design thinking mostly on corporates, but you most I see in entrepreneurs.
yes,
So the challenges between these two are far apart. Can you share with us? Because I'm looking now at my Facebook, a lot of entrepreneurs are joining actually.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges of entrepreneurs that maybe you can highlight to them so that they can say, oh, it looks like me, it sounds like me, probably this is useful for me, right? So what are those that from your observation that could be useful for them to take a reflection on, and they can do something about it? Share with us.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So one thing I think the biggest challenge that we face is that when we talk about, it's just like talking about IR 4.0. It's so big.
Oh yeah.
We talk about even sebenarnya if you're talking about even design thinking, it's like this big cloud that they don't know what it's all about. Even now we're talking about we're trying to break it down. It's not something you can do within 10 minutes to some extent, because it is a lot of concept and context. So to me, as an entrepreneur, the first thing that would help them is really to be able to have the awareness of where we are now and where we want to go, rather than focusing on issues beyond our control. So in design thinking, we are talking a lot about things that what can we do? Because I think one of the favorite questions in design thinking is how might we overcome this challenge? How might we overcome this limitation? So as an entrepreneur, I think when you're talking about design thinking, it's basically being able to look honestly where we are at this point of time. So from my experience with usahawan ni lah, the biggest challenge is their financial management.
Exactly.
Sorry
exactly. Right. That's a good point you brought up, because that's actually the issue. But so how does having design thinking or learning design thinking would help them? Share with us.
So by understanding, by having because one of the things from this outcome of the thinking like a designer is understanding the impact for everything that you do. What is the impact and why is it important for you to measure it? So the numbers that we are doing for financial management become something meaningful. So when talking about financial management of a company, we're not talking about I hardly talk about debit, credit, penyata keuangan. I'm not talking about that, but we're talking about what does the number mean to the business. So when you're talking about design thinking, you're really talking about understanding your client, and one of the ways of you understanding the client is looking at your sales number. Looking at who your client, who are the biggest paymaster, siapa yang paling ramai sangat, paling banyak beli daripada kita.
Right. So in your words, it means the entrepreneur can use design thinking to increase their sales.
Exactly.
Right? To analyze them. That's a good point. Because as an entrepreneur myself, sometimes I get caught up just to bring in sales, right? Bring sales, chase the numbers. I get my team to chase sales, call this, call that. But after a while, sometimes you have a certain time where you have a lot of sales. You didn't really make some analysis. Who are these people who have been buying from me? Especially those entrepreneur yang orang kata apa? Jual retail products, jual sabun, jual krepe, jual all these usahawan. There are many types of usahawan. So these usahawan, for example, they're selling in big numbers and volumes. So you're saying that design thinking can help them analyze who are these people that have been buying from them. And in context. Okay. All right.
So exactly. So meaning, we're talking about, when we're talking about empathy, for example, in design thinking, we cannot empathize with a large group. We need to have focus, right?
Right.
If we're talking about, so there's two parts in it. There's the actual normal clients that we are serving. That is for us to exploit. We're exploiting the biggest market that is using our services. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur, we have to be able to explore. So in exploring is identifying who's the outlier, who's the people who are, their customer once in a while, but they do buy. So when we have design thinking as a skill, we are curious. We become
Right.
curious about these people saying like, what makes you buy from me, or what makes you not buy from me? And
Mm-hmm.
from there, probably we can unlock opportunity, uh,
Right. Right.
either by enhancing our product, adding a feature. So
Right.
this is where the design thinking element really works well when we are an entrepreneur. So
Right. Right.
mm,
I think
mm,
it's a great insight that you brought up here, because often design thinking has been associated with big innovation, like hardware, software, app, web app,
disruptive,
disruptive,
Gojek.
IR 4.0, all those. So I think so much shows some entrepreneurs are so scared, design thinking apa benda ni, I
Takut.
don't. And then you look at the book macam-macam,
Yeah,
from empathy, now it has become so big disruptive element. So I
yeah,
like the fact that you brought this to this context, where they can look back at their sales differently, right? I think
yeah,
this is a good insight.
yeah,
So you are saying that with design thinking, the entrepreneurs will be able to have some level of tool, not just their experience, and we build on
yeah,
their experience,
yeah,
looking back at the business differently and how
yeah.
to scale it, maybe explore the new areas, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's good on design thinking. So maybe for entrepreneurs, right? There are many types of entrepreneurs. Who do you think best to get this kind of benefit? Is it someone who just have an idea, or is it someone that have done something about it, or someone who are actually having some traction of business? Which one?
The easy answer will be everybody.
All right. That's an easy one, right? Yeah.
That's the easy answer will be, in actual
Mm.
fact, everybody can utilize design thinking in
Mm-hmm.
their business,
Right.
being an entrepreneur.
Right.
The thing is, how and what.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're talking about somebody who's just having an idea,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody who already have a business and
Mm-hmm.
maybe wanting to scale or looking at sustainability, or at this point of time you're talking about survival, how to
Mm-hmm.
survive, you have different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you are somebody who is just starting, just having an idea, then you will be starting with, how do I validate whether my idea is something which is marketable?
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas if somebody who's already having a business,
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking about survivability, you have actually one step up, because you have already a database of client.
Right.
So you already have information compared to
Right.
somebody who's just starting.
Right.
So
Okay.
for me, the challenge entrepreneurs usually face is that they forget about that database that they have. They
Mm.
always feel when people are not buying from them or
Mm.
not continuing, with them, that is a lost cause.
Right.
But
Right.
in reality, uh, customers, we're human. We're just waiting for people to just reach out to us and ask the question, hey, why aren't you buying from me?
Right. Okay.
Uh,
Right.
so, so one thing that I think which is really important, as entrepreneurs and talking
Mm-hmm.
about design thinking, is the ability, kebolehan untuk menerima maklum balas.
Right.
The ability to accept comments and criticism or
Mm.
feedback.
Right.
Of course, out of that 10 feedback, maybe you can use one or two,
Yeah.
but it is actually that relationship building part that helps
Yeah.
people to remember us as entrepreneurs, as our
Right.
business, the transformation relationship that we would want to have.
Right. Okay. Talking about ideas, right? So how does entrepreneurs select ideas? In design thinking, you generate of ideas. So how to select the best ideas? Because some ideas probably so close to your heart, you wanted to do it, but maybe your customer don't want it, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you wouldn't know until you try. But how do you do that from design thinking perspective, Safura?
yeah. Basically, getting out of the building,
All right. Okay.
going out and actually talking to who you think is your customer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and put it again, telinga kena tebal lah, muka pun kena hitam lah,
Right.
meaning
Right.
you are going there, and we cannot be emotional.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
think the challenge that we have, and this is not only in Malaysia, we always like to think, usahawan Melayu, dia ni sensitif. Sebenarnya all
Mm-hmm,
over
mm-hmm.
the world, they have the same thing. They are very, emotional attachment with their product or service. So
Right.
the first thing to do is actually be objective,
Mm-hmm.
meaning saying that, okay, hati kena terbuka, minda kena
Mm,
terbuka, and
mm.
when somebody is sharing something, just listen. Okay,
Right,
so to
right.
me, it's pretty much being able to separate ourselves from the product and services, and
Mm-hmm.
really hearing from the customer point of view, especially if that's our target customer. All right.
Right, right,
If they're not, then
right.
next, next.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Okay,
that. So
talking about entrepreneurship, one thing we cannot run away is money, 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 right? Funding, funding. So, what's your view? So, when should an entrepreneur or business get funded or look for funding, to scale? Your view.
yeah, I'm a big proponent of starting with what you have.
Okay.
I think Mark Cuban famously said,
The Shark Tank guy, right?
the
Right.
Shark Tank. He said, it's ridiculous. I'm not going to use his words, but it's ridiculous for you to start a business with a loan
Mm.
because your business is not certain, but paying back the loan is.
Mm. Mm-hmm. All right, that's good.
So one of the things that I always recommend to entrepreneurs is pretty much get validation of your product. Get
Mm.
get proof that you are able to sell that product. So yeah, I know some, and I've met entrepreneurs who come to me and say like, but it's a chicken and egg situation. I need the money in order for me to be able to do the product that I want. So the question would be, I think design thinking favorite question is, how could you do it without that thing? How could we do it? So to me, funding, definitely, if you go to any financial institute now, it is a big challenge.
Right.
And as an entrepreneur, we have to be able to show proof of validation of our product.
Yeah.
Tak boleh pergi situ tangan kosong dengan atas angin.
Okay. Right. Okay. Let's go something controversial, okay?
Aduh,
I mean,
okay.
what's your view? Okay, I mean, you come from you work in an SME bank, funding agency like
Before,
QMB,
yes.
kan? I mean, you are in the ecosystem. So, what's your view about government agencies giving funding? I mean, you said that entrepreneurs should start with whatever they have, but at the same time, you also said that the entrepreneur shouldn't go empty-handed. You should start something, right? So, what's your view about this? And when should government start coming in, giving some funding to these entrepreneurs?
Okay, wow.
Controversy tak? Takut.
Controversy.
Okay, go ahead. I mean, just your view,
Okay.
yeah.
Frankly speaking, I think the government has done an awesome job, within their means and powers of helping entrepreneurs. They have put in billions
Yes.
of ringgit.
Yeah.
So the question would be the impact. Okay, I'm sure that if we are being realistic about the impact, for every dollar we put in, we are not getting the actual return if you put in a normal business. Okay, and that's the reality. That's the reality when we are talking about, especially startups. That the rate of I would say, of them pivoting to something else or deciding to do something else is very high. I wouldn't say failure, because they could change and decide to do something else totally, which is not based on the program given. So to me, from my study, the things that my experience, I believe that the facilitation should also be towards the, I would say, soft tissue infrastructure, not the hard, because when we talk about government intervention, we're talking about funding, training, infrastructure, and market access. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the four that we always focus on.
Yeah,
And that has
I like the part where you put the market access last because you either get it or you don't. It is in that order actually. You're right. Okay, continue,
yeah.
continue.
So the government has been playing very active role in this, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
The challenge is that it is like somebody who we're talking about sustainability and profitability, yet we are giving them a crutch.
Right,
We're living in too much abundance that we
mm,
don't have the feeling of we are hungry.
right, right,
So
right.
because of that, what happens is that when they get the training, when they get the infrastructure, when they get the money, and when they get the market access,
Mm,
the crutch continues.
right,
you
right.
know
Mm,
Compared to people who are hungry.
mm,
You just get one, probably they can fly. So again, I'm just saying that perhaps we should have a different perspective on how to do this,
mm,
because I feel what we lack, the gap that we have, and I'm being me, this is my personal opinion, can shoot me
mm,
down for that, is that we
mm,
need to strengthen the soft tissue infra, which
mm.
is the people who are supporting the entrepreneurs.
Right. Like what?
The
Can you
pe-
explain it a little bit more? The
yeah,
soft inspire.
for,
Yeah. Mm,
for example, the entrepreneur development officers.
mm, mm-hmm,
How do they have entrepreneurialism in their mindset? Do
mm-hmm,
they know the tools?
mm-hmm,
Are they
mm-hmm,
able to actually look at a situation and have a conversation with the entrepreneurs? How
mm-hmm,
could we do this together?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Instead of just, I'm not saying all, but some just pushing it away and saying that it's another agency's problem, or you need
mm-hmm.
to go to somebody else, or you need money actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
Instead
mm-hmm,
of sitting down and having an honest conversation with the
mm-hmm,
entrepreneur, asking the right questions
mm,
about how can we move to the next level. We tend to want to membantu, we want to
mm-hmm,
help, we're not facilitating,
mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm.
as entrepreneurs, they have the answer. They
Right.
actually have the answer to their situation, is perhaps they don't have the right tools.
Mm-hmm,
So the EDOs, or the soft tissue infra, should
mm-hmm,
have access to the tools. I mean,
mm-hmm.
that's my opinion lah. So my
Right.
agenda pretty much is to build capacity and capability of this soft tissue infrastructure.
Mm-hmm,
Having the business coaches, the skill set, having perhaps, again, when we're talking about IR 4.0, which we can't run away, because that makes it scalable.
mm-hmm,
Having a platform so that all business coaches, irrespective of where you're coming from and whatnot,
mm,
you actually talk the same language.
mm-hmm,
To me, even when I was with InScan last time, my
mm-hmm,
agenda pretty much was to how do I get educators from university,
mm,
officers from government agencies,
mm-hmm,
entrepreneurs and trainers to actually speak the same language.
mm-hmm,
Because end of the day, to me, methodology of coaching and
mm-hmm,
mentoring is crucial. But how
mm-hmm.
many of us here in the ecosystem actually have the tools to actually really help the entrepreneurs, to empower them to be accountable for their business, instead of coming us to say, you give me the money, it will solve all the problems. Does it?
Yeah, yeah, right, right. I think that's a good point that you brought up. Where you have a business coaches, and I also like to add on to this conversation and also a question, something that I ponder as well as we are talking, where it's not that we don't have successful entrepreneurs. No, we do, a lot of them, right? Whatever segment you call them, at many what you call business sectors, or what you call verticals. There are many entrepreneurs, but
Yeah.
why they are the successful entrepreneurs are not reaching out to the new one? I mean, what's your thought? I mean, you were in a lot of the agencies, you met them, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes some of the agencies have to design program so that only then to lure in these successful entrepreneurs to come and help. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, from my experience, my personal experience, this is my personal opinion, is
Yeah.
pretty much looking at the big picture lah.
Yeah.
I think there were programs designed where the clarity of the impact of the program is not being communicated clearly to the target audience. Okay.
Right.
So, I take an example, a close example of Korea lah. Korea.
Yeah.
And Korea, the entrepreneur development is the same, relatively started the same time as ours, and they had this big brother system where the big companies actually support their little brothers. So they had that system. I think to some extent we do have that, but the question is that probably the communication part of the outcome, the outcome that we want from the programs is not being communicated clearly. I take for example when we're talking about nation plan lah. There's this one chapter which I already dah ingat lupa. RMK 11, which actually really clearly address the issue about jago antarabangsa, jago serantau. And to me, if you go back and read the plan, the strategy and the policy, it's really clear cut. But the challenge, again, as I said, the gap in the execution.
Right.
And to me, again, the gap is nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just that the capability. The capability of us menjunjung dan menyambut that aspiration. We haven't achieved that level yet, in my opinion lah. Where I think we need to strive towards that. We need to strive towards, and it shouldn't be just the government who's doing this.
Right.
So that's where I like to go to my LinkedIn posting where I was talking about this guy Brad Feld, who wrote a book, Startup Communities, and he was really talking about how do we start in a startup community in our own place. So from there he talks about, there were studies done about how people try to copy Silicon Valley and the challenges in trying to be successful. And he says there's one element which is missing, which I'm going back to that soft tissue part. That actually the entrepreneurs need to take to empower themselves to be responsible for the ecosystem.
Right.
Okay. And we should be
talking about that, right? Yeah, talking about that, right? You mentioned early on about social entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
So how does social entrepreneurs fall into this intersection? Where are they? Are they somewhere in between? Because I see a lot of social entrepreneurs these days, and the Penjana also mentioned specifically about putting more money into social entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
What's your thought about that, and how sustainable is this?
Yeah. Okay. Again, to me, I love social enterprise because I think it would resolve a lot of community ecosystem situation that we're facing. Okay. It's just that, again, going back to the entrepreneur themselves, are they clear about what actually the impact that they want? Is it measurable? Is it sustainable? So to me, yes, SE is a really good hybrid mechanism to address the public-private initiative. Okay. Having said that, to me, the challenge that we face is that we tend to be silo when we talk about entrepreneurship development. We're saying, okay, university is doing something, government is doing something else, and then the entrepreneur are doing one thing apart from that. So to me, if we collaborate in the same level, then SE would be super powerful, because SE is a platform. It's a platform of community, right?
Right.
So I just want to share a story, which
Please.
I'm trying to put it in words.
All right.
One time, I was in this gathering of multiple players, academician, entrepreneurs, and this one entrepreneur was so passionate saying this: I don't like academicians.
All right.
I think they only talk about theory. They have no idea about the what's happening out here. Okay, that's one scenario. And another scenario also I faced, where as a bank, we're trying to help, try to understand the situation faced by the entrepreneurs. So we were asking a few questions about how, share with us how you actually address this challenge. And this particular entrepreneur told me flat in my face, you're a bank. You just give us this thing, we'll be okay. We're businessmen. We know how to run our business. You don't need to know.
Right.
Okay, so sharing that two things shows how we have a gap in the ecosystem, because we feel that I'm playing my role, you play your role, we should be all right. But we don't understand each other. So when a bank is asking an entrepreneur, it's not actually for us to korek your rahsia, but it's to help us serve you better.
Okay.
And an academician, they might be doing papers about entrepreneurship.
Right.
But I think Alex Oswalder, he's an academician, but he came up with all these fantastic tools applicable to entrepreneurs. So I think one thing we need to also look at is how do we work together with the same agenda of making Malaysia an entrepreneurial nation. And we've got 10 years to do that.
Right. Why 10 years?
Ya, Dasar Keusahawanan Negara 2030.
Oh, that's the DKN, right? DKN.
DKN 2030.
Right. Okay. 2030. Right. Put here. All right. Good. So, okay, Safura, I think we passed our time. Thanks so much for spending your time. I take more than I should. I think we're all excited talking about design thinking and entrepreneurship. I think this is an interesting topic. So, final words to entrepreneurs and innovation business coaches out there.
Okay, never stop learning, and to me, learn to apply, not learn for just the sake of learning. Because I do know some usahawan kat luar sana pergi seminar demi seminar, and then tak ada masa nak apply. So for me, learn to apply. So you might have to stop your learning a bit just to apply, so you can learn from your experience. So to me, that's design thinking. Design thinking is pretty much you learn, you apply, you relearn, reapply. So that's from me.
All right.
I hope I've been helpful.
You actually, thanks so much. Makes so much sense. There you go. Thank you so much, Safura, for joining us in this program today. Give a big hand to Safura.
Thank you so much.
All right, welcome. Catch you again, Safura. Thank you so much. I say bye-bye to now. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much. That's Safura from a Growthwheel Business Advisor talking about design thinking in entrepreneurialism, right? So that's a great topic that I wanted to share today. And what design thinking? Design thinking especially is innovation tool, she mentioned just now, and entrepreneurialism, which means about starting a business, starting ideas, whether you are working in a company, whether you are usahawan running your own business. So this is what we call entrepreneurialism. And basically she mentioned also about some very important thing about funding in usahawan, in entrepreneurs. So when do we need? So basically we start with something that we have, don't need to borrow so much money, and don't rely on government funding. So basically she advocated that the also design thinking will be able to help entrepreneurs to look back at their sales, look at their customers, have some thinking tool, and so that you'll be able to know who will be buying from you, who is your target market. I mean, for me personally, as a practitioner in design thinking and also an executive coach in innovation, which also use design thinking. I totally agree with her on that. Where sometimes you are targeting a certain customers, but another customers be buying from you. So, what should you do? Should you let them go? Should you buy from other people? So that's something. No, so you see, my face is blistering after the PD trip short vacation. So with that, thank you so much, Safura Atan. She's a business coach, and she also talked about Dasar Kesawanan Negara DKN 2030. So we have 10 years from 2020 to 2030 to make Malaysia as entrepreneurial nation. So with that, thank you so much once again for staying tuned in Ice Chat. We have another special guy. A guy, is it a guy? Next week, I think on Monday or Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at my schedule. I think on Tuesday, a special person, on entrepreneur himself, talking about business. Right? So stay tuned. Ice Chat, like and follow our page or our YouTube. Ice Chat, innovation, change, and entrepreneurship, helping someone get back on their feet is good economics. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Bye bye. Happy Friday. Bye bye. See you again.